Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 121st episode of the Losers Bracket Podcast. This week, as always, I will be joined by my co-hosts, Lord Jareth from vVvGaming, Curt from Check 6. I also do have a special guest with us this week. He is the editor-in-chief of Shoryuken.com. We'll be joined by Keits. He'll be with us in just 1 second. Curt, how are you doing this week, my friend?
Doing well. Ready to start the show. Get things rolling. How about you, Jerry?
I am ready to go. It's a holiday weekend, so I am good to talk esports and good to move on. Let's roll.
Yeah, definitely. Keits, editor-in-chief of SRK, Adam Hart. Welcome to the Losers Bracket, my friend. We have short time with you tonight. You're actually joining us on your break from work. We appreciate you taking some time to join us. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm good. It's no problem. I'm technically always at work, even when I'm at home.
Definitely. Yeah, you've been hard at work, actually, on a really cool new title. We'll be talking about that very shortly. But for those who might not know who you are, please give us a little bit of insight, a little bit of history. Who is Keits?
I'm just a fighting game fan who's probably a little too passionate. I used to play and run tournaments from like 1997 to 2003, and then I took a short retirement, and those never last for fighting game players, and came back in 2007 and got really involved in the community and just tried to kind of put my fingers in everything. Anywhere I went, I was just like, hey, how can I help, And, that kind of attitude, I guess, landed me in the right place at the right time, and I ended up writing for SRK, and I was dedicated to that, and I eventually worked my way into this position. And since then, I've just been, running my major, UFGT 8 in Chicago, or UFGT series, rather. 9 would be next year. And trying to do the best I can,
Yeah, definitely. And you even have your own podcast over for Shoryuken as well, Wakeup SRK.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we started that almost 2.5 years ago or so. Maybe almost, we're at episode 110-ish, so about 2 years worth of weekly content. And we take probably 10 to 12 weeks a year off. So yeah, about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. And to be fair, Evo's right around the corner, so really busy week for you guys over at Shoryuken. I'd love to hear, I know I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know, like I said, your time is short, but what are your expectations for this weekend? Any sort of predictions? I mean, this is going to be a really big weekend for you guys, one of the biggest fighting games, if not the biggest fighting game event of all time. What are your thoughts?
Well, specifically, I'm a Marvel player. I follow that the most closely, and I actually watched the Vanilla Marvel Top 8 today while I was working, and Vanilla Marvel got criticized by a lot of players for the DHC glitch, which, if you don't know, is a weird way you can circumvent the game's juggling properties to score extremely easy kill combos with certain teams, and that turned a lot of people off to the game. But the Top 8 really didn't have any of that. The winning teams were all Phoenix and Wolverine-centric, and they weren't really using the DHC glitch at all. So, what is the dominating tactic this year? Right now, people are scared of Morgan Doom. Will Morgan Doom even make the top 8, If that was the thing we were scared of last year that didn't even make the top 8, maybe that doesn't happen again this year. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. I haven't had any practice time, so I don't have high hopes for myself, but my favorites, Justin Wong is finally serious about winning again. Since Ultimate came out, he's been playing Iron Fist and just not really playing an optimal team, and I think he's had enough of playing the game, and now he wants to win the game. So Justin Wong looks serious, is always scary. Chris G's been proven extremely consistent, and if he's willing to counterpick to deal with teleport characters that can actually beat his team, he'll go far. And then Filipino Champ is another one of my favorites. You can never count him out, and he's one of the few players who's still making Phoenix work, and he's totally willing to play an alternate team if Phoenix isn't working, and he can realize fast enough that that's happening. So, yeah, those are my picks.
Very cool. I do have one other thing about Evo that I'd love to touch on, and then I'll get my co-hosts in before we head over to some Divekick, because I really do want to talk about that game. I'm in love with it. I told you all about that at CEO, how much I was just head over heels for the game, and it seems like other people are too. But there's been a lot of concern over the Evo points and the seeding. that I've seen a lot of people talking about it on Twitter, how they were like, hey, we went to all these locals. It seems like the seeding isn't really being, I mean, hey, we're number 1, number 2 seed, but there's people that are lower than us that are still getting buys. Do you have any sort of input, any sort of feedback from the Shoryuken staff, the people that are running EVO even, what's going on there, why that ended up happening, and just general thoughts from the staff side, what's going on with the seeding, and is there any changes?
The only thing I'm really responsible for at EVO is directing the commentary pit, but this is a question that's, kind of close to me as well, and it is something that Ski Sonic and I asked Tom Cannon about on our show when he was on last week. So instead of giving you the long version here, I would just have you check out the archive, go to Twitch.tv /Keits, Keits, and check out last week's episode of Wakeup SRK, number 105. He answers the question in detail, and we grill him pretty hard from all those Twitter questions. Those were all pretty much there because he was on the show and we wanted to talk to him about it, and he gives you the answer straight up.
Okay. Curt, please, any questions that you might have for Keits, my friend?
Most of my questions are about Divekick. So, Jason, if you want to build into that,
let me hop on. I was going to talk about Divekick too. So, whenever we're ready to transition, let me know.
Yeah, let's talk.
Divekick, my favorite.
Yeah, let's do a little talk about Divekick, because this game is getting a lot of attention really quickly. It's really only been shown twice publicly, if I'm correct. UFGT Chicago and CEO here in Orlando recently. But this is a game that you've been working on, and really it looks simple from the outside, but then you start playing it, you realize how deep it is. Only 2 buttons, and just a very interesting mind game of sorts. For those that don't know about Divekick, can you tell us just a little bit about the game and how you came about creating it?
Yeah, this came out of a late night conversation. I had some friends over somewhere around the release of Ultimate Marvel. We were playing until 4 in the morning, and then it was okay, it's time for sleep, so we turned the game off. But instead of going to sleep, we just started cracking jokes. And one of the jokes that shot out of my mouth was, wouldn't it be hilarious? And we thought everything was funny at the time, so I said, wouldn't it be hilarious if there was a game called Divekick, and the 2 characters are dive and kick, and there were only 2 buttons, dive and kick, and that was the whole game. 1-hit wins, no blocking, and, my buddy shot up out of his chair, and he was like, yo, I can make that. So we immediately got into serious mode and started discussing, if it was really possible to make and what some of the problems might be. Even that first night we talked about the additional characters that I wanted to put in, and that we would have an issue with timeouts, and then I immediately was like, well, whoever's closer to the middle of the stage wins. You got to hog that space. And we set straight to work, and, it's been a labor of love, something that we've only done in our spare time, so it took a while to get to the point where we were playable, and even longer to get to the point where we had enough assets in the game where it didn't look like complete crap, and we could bring in a small test group, swear them to secrecy, and have them start playtesting the game. And what we found with these test groups was, and we had a feeling of this ourselves before we brought them in, but the game is fun. It's obviously wrapped up in the shell of a joke, but the game is super serious. And I bring these guys in to playtest for, 2, 3, 4 hours, and then they stay at my house for 14 hours. I can't get them to stop playing. So we knew we had something good on our hands, and at that point we kind of got really, motivated by the feedback from our small test groups, and went into overdrive. And instead of working in our spare time, just a little bit, we were spending all of our spare time on this thing and adding more art and more polish and anything that we could do to just improve the game so that when we finally showed it to people, they would, really have a good experience, and it would feel like a real piece of software.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that paid off because we showed it at UFGT8, and that was what it was created for, was just to be a one-time for fun thing. And people could not get enough of it, and everyone was coming up to me saying, you got to release this, et cetera, et cetera. And the rest of the story is pretty simple from there. Jabali got me to bring it out to the CEO. I got more of the same feedback, and we are definitely pursuing a release. But I want to make it clear that the game is not anywhere close to finished, and we have a lot of surprises coming, and the game will definitely be worth your money when we're done.
Yeah, and speaking of money, you just ended up putting the game on Kickstarter, $30,000 goal, so that you can do everything the legal right way, get it actually put out there into the world, and in just about a day's worth of time, you've already pretty much raised a third of that goal. Really huge congratulations on that. I find that absolutely incredible. Jerry, what are your thoughts? This is just an amazing project in my mind, but I'd love to hear your questions for Keits.
Well, my first thing is I was looking at the One True Game video you guys did with Ultra David and sort of about the game. Tell us a little bit about that process. What did you guys decide? Has that been helpful in raising money, or what made you decide to put together that video?
The video, like, I wanted an announcement trailer for UFGT8 to get people excited about playing this goofy-ass game, right? And I do some video work myself, but I'm really not very good. So I contacted Red Rapper, he lives out in California, and asked him if he was interested in taking the project. And he had some spare time, so he was interested in doing it. And I had already made Ultra David agree to appear in this trailer. No matter who was directing it, Ultra David was going to appear in it because his, semi-serious demeanor presenting this kind of thing, which is just in my mind was too priceless. And Ultra David didn't know what he was agreeing to be in. I forced him to agree to be in a trailer for my event in exchange for, his flight and hotel for UFGT and for doing commentary for me. So part of the deal was, you be in my trailer, which worked out great for me because that's just too classic. So yeah, Red Rapper wrote and directed the whole thing, filmed it all, edited it all up for me, and it's really funny. It's got like 100,000 hits, and it's definitely driven a lot of traffic and attention to the game. I think the only problem with the trailer really is that people come away from the trailer thinking that it's not a real product, that it's like just a joke trailer,
Well, I mean, you did set it up that way, but I mean, I think that probably actually benefits it because it kind of shows you don't take yourself too seriously. So at least the fan base that you have going for you will kind of, start out there, and then hopefully they'll sort of accidentally stumble onto it and then discover they really like it, which is probably the best place to be. So I think it probably works,
Yeah, for sure. I think the natural process and the way that we've been kind of marketing the game has been pretty beneficial. And I mean, I still see a lot of comments on YouTube videos about Divekick from people every day that are like, this is real? I thought this was a joke. So a lot of people are still discovering it.
Well, let me ask this question. I know that, obviously it started very randomly, and all of a sudden as you start to think about, wow, raising money and becoming a business, everything all of a sudden shifts. And I want to talk a little bit about goals. So if you define the goals for this product, is it just to get it made? Is it kind of a personal quest? Or you something have bigger than that? So I want to talk a little bit about, now that you've started on this journey, how are you going to sort of grade your own success in this process?
My personal goal, I mean, I've been a game designer since I was a little kid. It's what I love doing. This is my first video game project, but I've been making board games and card games since forever. I've never tried to sell any of them before, but this is definitely a lifelong dream for me, and I'm somewhat sad that it's taken me 30 years to get here, but I'm also excited that, I may finally be able to do what I really love to do. So my goal for this, obviously, is to make enough money to hire people at my company to make another game. That's what I want to do.
Well, there's a lot of money in the entrepreneur space, kind of hit and miss, looking at gaming. So this will be interesting to follow this journey. What's coming up? So what are the big things next? Talk a little bit about the Kickstarter goal and what that enables you to do, and then what you see happening after you raise the money. So sort of the next 6 months of Divekick.
Well, right now, what we have is a piece of software that we made in XNA that isn't super pretty, like code-wise. Our biggest next step is going to be to port that code into probably Unity so that we have a little more flexibility with the software and makes it easier to port to other platforms should we decide to do so. A lot of the money that's coming in is going to pay for things like that, licenses and legal fees, and usually when you release on like Steam or another PC platform, they'll require that you get your software certified so that it runs on a lot of different hardware, and usually have to hire a firm to do that kind of thing. So the money we're taking in is to cover those expenses. Any money left over obviously is going to be spent continually improving the game in any possible way that we can. We would love to add online play. We would love to get great netcode so that the online play is worth using. We would love to add a story mode. We have additional characters we'd love to put in the game. All this is stuff that we want to do, but, obviously we've worked in our spare time up until now, and, they say in software you do 80% of the work in the last 20% of the project. We have a lot to do, and we're going to probably have to focus on this more full-time if we want to get it out in any reasonable amount of time. So some of the money will go there as well, to paying our programmer and paying our artists so that they can grind on this absolutely full-time, make it their total focus, and we can get it out before the end of the year.
That's awesome to hear. Well, I don't want to take up too much time. I'm going to ask one final question. I'm going to pass it back on to Jason or Curt, but I want to know, right now, where's your biggest fan base for this game? Who are you seeing come in to support it? Talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, obviously this game is for the fighting game community. It's almost a love letter to them. It's loaded with so many in-jokes for the fighting game community that, I'm not even sure how a non-fighting game person would react to kind of the humor in the game. But bottom line is the game is, it really fits my philosophy in game design. I'm not one of those training mode guys who wants to break the combo engine and figure out how to do a longer combo and do more damage. That's not really interesting to me. What's interesting to me about gaming has always been outsmarting someone. And Divekick is a game that cuts away all the BS and lets you do that. That's all the game is outsmarting your opponent. If I hit you, you don't have to watch essentially what is a 30-second cutscene of me comboing you. We go right back to the beginning, and I try and outsmart you again. Right? So that is part of why I think it's so fun for a lot of people. It's not a game that you have to practice or train in. It's a game that you can learn by simply watching, and it's a game that you can immediately have fun with and immediately get to the fun part of a fighting game.
Whenever I think
that's my philosophy in design.
So whenever I think about the way you described it there, sort of going until you hit and then you reset, it reminds me almost of fencing to a degree, the way like sword fighting is,
sure.
Something like that. So that's kind of interesting. Well, Jason, I know Curt's got trouble with this call, so I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Definitely. I can actually answer a little bit of this because, hey, I'm a rhythm gamer at heart, so I'm not really a big part of the fighting game community, although the only other game I've ever placed in a national tournament for was Soul Calibur, so I guess I do know a little bit about fighting games. But
sure, yeah.
Coming to CEO, having no idea what this game was, recognizing a couple of the in-jokes just because, hey, I've hosted this show for, 2.5 years at this point, so I've seen a little bit of that. The jokes, it stood out. I saw Mr. N, which I just played one of the videos with the character in it, and I thought, oh my god, Marn, that's hilarious. And I just saw like the $8.95, the DLC joke, and just lots of really great content that you're putting into the game. I know I've seen a lot of the rewards, creating new characters with people on Kickstarter. Is there anything that is coming that you could possibly give us a little bit of a hint towards for someone like myself that, might not be completely into the fighting game, but will get me a little bit more hyped up about the game and its coming release?
Are you looking for something Kickstarter related or something actual game content related?
Just something gameplay related. Something that, someone maybe not even in the fighting game will be like, okay, I've got to try this.
Well, there are a couple characters already in the game who aren't playable, like in the backgrounds and stuff.
Okay, well, I guess that...
You still there?
Oh, did we lose you there for a second, Keits?
Hello, you still there?
We're all here. I can hear everybody.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, my phone did a thing.
No worries. We heard that you said there's a couple of characters in the background of the game that you haven't got fully implemented yet.
Well, they're not playable. Maybe they won't ever be. Maybe one of or two of them will be. I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
Curt, are you back on the call, my friend?
I'm finally back, man. I'm telling you, this North Carolina stuff's getting ridiculous. My internet keeps going out. I really apologize, Adam. But before I do go out again,
I'm lucky I'm on my phone because my Comcast has been going out all day at my house. So
yeah, it's
I'm lucky I'm on the phone here.
Yeah, I don't quite get it, man. It's definitely acting up. But I do want to ask a few questions before I head up getting out again. One thing, and I'm sorry if someone else asked a question. Like I said, I did miss most of the call. But another thing is that you did mention netplay. I was here for that. You were able to mention netplay and sort of the netcode, around it. You said in the Kickstarter that if you get $40,000, that's probably one of the perks. With that extra $10,000 would be.
Well,
the netplay.
To be clear, we're gonna try and put that in,
no matter
if we
what.
Don't get to 40, right? But if we get 40, we promise it'll be in.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know,
Let me ask you,
we're going to try our best before that, but it's a matter of cost, and
of
you know, it's also a matter of my team's skill. You know, this is something we're new to. We're all new to game development. My programmer is a programmer, but he's not, you know, super versed in game development. We're learning as we go. You know, if I have the money, obviously I can hire an expert and do it right. So that would be great.
Of course. Well, my question sort of behind that, though, is the fact that latency for fighting games is something that is like, for fighting games, it's so not acceptable that it even takes, you know, I always thought that, you know, FPS games were the biggest when it comes to that, but it's not. Like, when a fighting game player presses that button, they want that guy to kick, they want that guy to jump, whatever.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, I know. I'm one of the biggest opponents of online play. I barely ever play fighting games online because I absolutely hate it. I'm super picky about netcode.
In general, not just in net play, but in general, how hard is really fine-tuning all that and making sure that there is no sort of latency between when that person hits the button and the guy, you know, does whatever.
There's always going to be lag. There's always going to be lag. That's just the nature of how the internet works. The infrastructure here in the United States is absolutely horrible, so it's even worse here. The challenges are much harder here. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the subject. Obviously, we're trying to raise money so that we can get an expert on the subject, so that we can deliver the best possible netcode to our fans. And you know, the lowest tier on our Kickstarter is $10, and that's essentially a pre-order for the game. We're going to give you a download code when we're done with it, and it's not even a donation at that point. You're just pre-buying the game so that we can have enough to finish it and then put it in your hands. So please do that if you're interested in the game. That would be awesome. Yay.
Yeah, you guys should definitely do that. It seems like an amazing project, and anything that is sort of comes from our own community is pretty amazing. You know, comes from, you know, your own community or our own community or however the hell the fighting game community is saying it now.
Yeah. I really believe in simplicity, in the beauty and simplicity in game design, and I think this game really exemplifies that you can make something that's easy to control very deep.
Yeah. I think it's also it sort of goes back to like to not just fighting games but FPS games now too. You know, and FPS games and RTS games and every game that they want to be incredibly complex nowadays. You know, they've got to have flying shit all over the map, and they've got to have a desk with a computer on it, and they've got to have, like, you know, every weapon you can name with every attachment with every color and all that stuff. When in fact, when it comes to our community especially, we just want a damn good game that, you know, we can play, right. And it doesn't
it depends on what kind of player you are too, because some players really get joy out of single player content like customizing a weapon and customizing their look. But me as a player, and I create games for myself, honestly, I just want to make the games that I want to play. The reason I play a game is almost solely to outsmart someone. That's why I play. I really, when I do the game design, I never design single-player games. I'm really not interested in beating a system or beating an AI. I want to beat other players. That's what's cool to me.
I'm the exact same way. As Jerry would be more than happy to tell you my favorite game I can play on my cell phone. Right, Jerry?
Yeah, you have been a longtime fan of Angry Birds since I've known you, so I think that's going to be Divekick should be a little bit of a step up from the Angry Birds. So I think you'll be good.
Yeah, I don't like.
To be fair, actually, while you're bringing up the phone thing, I noticed online that the next platform that you plan on looking for is possibly cell phone for this game. Any idea?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the big reasons we want to port to Unity, is so that we have an opportunity to look at the iOS and Android platforms and try and move the game there. I think there have actually been a lot of fighting game releases on iOS, and I can't stand controlling a fighting game on a touchpad, but a game with no directional movement and only two buttons, you know, I could touch anywhere on the right half of the screen, and that could be the kick button, and on the left half of the screen, that could be the dive button, and it's like, how can I miss?
Right.
It's perfect.
That's awesome. That is so cool. I have one final question, because I know that you've got to get going here shortly. And this one might be a little bit of almost, I guess you could say, just your personal opinion, because a lot of people have their own thoughts on the MLG and the FGC and all this craziness. How would you feel personally to see Divekick on a bigger stage someday? Would you like to see it get to that point where Divekick is played at, say, an MLG event or at an EVO? Is that an eventual thing?
Yeah, I don't really care where it gets played as long as people, play it and enjoy it. The best thing for me, the only thing that makes me happier than outsmarting someone in a video game is watching other people enjoy my games. And we do play tests with my board games all the time, and I don't even play. I just sit there and I watch players try and play the rule set I've created and figure out how to beat each other. And I just get an immense amount of joy out of that. So, anything that results in Divekick getting played by people is awesome. I want that.
That is so cool. Keits, want to definitely thank you once more for taking some time out, joining us tonight, talking about your game. Any shout-outs before you head out?
Yeah, shout-outs to everyone involved in EVO who have been breaking their backs for the last month, doing crunch time to get this thing going. Inkblot, Ponder, Mr. Lizard, everybody involved, volunteering, the entire commentary crew as well. I'm going to see you guys in a few days. Please travel safe.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Adam, for taking some time out tonight. We look forward to hearing how your time was at EVO. Please have a safe trip. And tell Inkblot.
Oh, yeah, if any of you guys are going to be at EVO, please stop by our booth and play the game. It's free.
Well, CD Jr. will be one of our players, so if he's around, we'll definitely.
As well as RTD and So Will Romance. So
definitely a couple of our fighters.
Yeah, have them drop by and give it a try.
If you could tell Inkblot that we'd love to have him back on sometime. Last time he was on, that was a long time ago. We'd love to get him back on sometime in the future, talk a little bit about how things have changed since then. But please have a good time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, Keits.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. What a great interview to kick things off. I can't tell you enough how much of a fan I am of Divekick. I've bragged about it.
I'm worried that Divekick is going to be your Counter-Strike.
It's so good. It really is. Like, it's so simple.
He has not stopped talking about it. He's talked more about Divekick than I've talked about Counter-Strike at least the past 2 weeks. Can we agree with that?
No.
Come on.
You took it too
got
far.
back from CEO and he's like, oh my God, Divekick.
You were fine, but as soon as you went there, it's like, one, I'm not going to acknowledge it. Two, if tonight you don't mention Counter-Strike Go, then maybe it would have finally broken even, and we can reset the clock.
Oh, God.
All right, so what do we got coming up next, Jason? What do we got going on?
All right, well, one more thing about fighting games before we get into a little bit of other kinds of news. I just wanted to announce that MLG actually has given a little bit of information about their fighting games for their next season, for the summer season. 2 of the 3 fighting games will be back. I think this is no surprise to anybody. But yeah, but Soul Calibur 5 will be back on PlayStation 3, as well as Mortal Kombat 9. King of Fighters nowhere to be found. There will be another arena. This will be August 10th, back at the MLG Studios in New York. And they'll be bringing the top 8 finishers from Anaheim to compete for $3,400 per game. So
hold on. Quick question. So that is, they're having a StarCraft arena, LOL arena, and a fighting game arena. Am I clear with that?
That is correct, to the best of my knowledge.
Cool, that's interesting. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, because I remember them saying there was an LOL arena, but I haven't seen any more information about it. But that's awesome.
Yep.
Just to clarify, the League of Legends arena is August 3rd to 5th, but we don't have all the information on it yet. We know the date for League of Legends is supposed to be August 3rd to the 5th. That's all I know.
Yep.
And I think the really interesting thing to point out, if you guys haven't seen, is that the arenas will be free from now on with HD upgrade options. So a huge change to the arena format after the pay-per-view model that kind of helped push them in this direction. So seeing what changes...
Since we're talking about that, since we're talking about the arenas, there's a few other things. Number one, I want to hear Jerry's opinion on this. Because he's always been so vocal when it comes to pay-per-views. So, I don't want to hear him be quiet now. But number two, I also want to talk about the fact that the invite-only qualifiers for these arenas once again happened this weekend, or this week. And I don't know. I know the MLG hasn't released the people that won. So, as out of respect to them, we're not going to say who won. But some of the results were leaked as usual. Wow. That's all I'm going to say. North America has a few familiar names, but quite a lot are missing. Europe is completely unknown players for the most part, or at least somewhat unknown players. You got, some really unknown players there. I'm just curious, like what people think when this kind of stuff happens. That Huck goes out in the second round of the invite-only qualifier, or Idra doesn't even play, or something like that. What do people think when you have some of these more unknown players winning their chance with the big boys?
I mean, I think it's twofold, right? I mean, I think at some level there are so many things going on that it's, I think, not realistic for players to be everywhere. So, I mean, it's almost like you can't really talk about Huck in relationship to a tournament. You have to look at Huck's entire schedule and say, okay, where does this fit in the big schedule? Same thing with Idra. Then there's players being sick, other commitments. So it's kind of hard from the outside looking in, knowing exactly what and how decisions get made as to whether or not somebody attends or not attends, or are there other mitigating factors that affect their performance at an event. I think it's good, no matter what, to have other players step up and be recognized by their performance. That's good for everyone. It's good for StarCraft, so I don't think anybody should be deeply disappointed. I wouldn't imagine that they wouldn't, but I'm sure the fans of the players who don't attend or do poorly are clearly not as thrilled about that factor.
Yeah, I just think it tends to prove more to point, like Carmack's point for IEM, that there's a lot of people unknown out there that are just waiting to get their chance. So, and I'm glad that MLG is finally in a position to provide it to them. And you'll see that with this arena, I think. So it's pretty amazing stuff.
Jeez, I can hear that weather going on in the background. That was a huge strike of lightning there.
It's ridiculous, man.
Oh my
God.
We had this in Chicago earlier this week. It was like a horrid flash flood storm. Absolutely a nightmare. But sorry to hear you have it too.
Yeah, so they got rid of pay-per-view. Number one, do we know who allowed them to do that? Once again, according to, if you follow their train of logic from what Sunday has posted, they were allowed to do that by a sponsor. A new sponsor came out, or someone wanting to support this initiative and give it out for free. Any idea who?
Well, I mean, we'll find out once we see the commercials, right? I mean,
yeah.
Somebody, it goes both ways, right? They complain. I mean, here's the funny part, right? You do pay-per-view, people complain pay-per-view. You don't do pay-per-view, and people complain there's too many commercials. Look, you're not going to get it. You're going to get one or the other, right? Television has too many commercials. So if you want to watch something live, you have to put up with that. So either A, you watch the commercials, or B, you get pay-per-view, right? There's a reason there aren't any commercials on HBO. There's a reason for that. It's because you pay for it, right? So again, how do I feel about it? Show these motherfuckers commercials. They're sitting there chewing on Doritos anyway. Fucking fill them up with commercials. And then, if they don't like it, give them a pay-per-view option again. Say, look, we tried pay-per-view, you hate it. We tried commercials, you hate it. What do you want? You want the option? We'll give you an option. You can get it for free and sit through the commercials, or you can get it for pay-per-view and pay for it. That's what I see happening.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the subject of paying for it, one, and MLG, two, I actually want to switch gears a little bit from the arenas into something that we haven't talked about in a little while, and that's actually Halo. Because Halo has a little bit of information coming out about it. It's been about a week since one bombshell dropped. We didn't get really to talk about it last week, but the bombshell has been dropped that there will be no spectator mode in Halo 4. Official No spectator mode in Halo 4, straight from the mouth of one of the community managers, 4343, on Twitter. Posted up, and then today, on top of this, another thing comes out today that says Microsoft confirms that the multiplayer aspect of Halo 4 will need either a flash drive or an Xbox 360 hard drive to even allow multiplayer online, which yet again limits who is able to play this game online.
Well, I think this has been obvious from the beginning, right? They dropped Halo not because they were bringing Halo back. I never saw it that way, right? A great game, it looks fantastic, right? But all of a sudden, there was this love affair with Treyarch and Call of Duty. So it's clear that if there's going to be a 360 game, it's looking like it's going to be Call of Duty, in my opinion, right? That's where all the stars are aligned. Because let's face facts, when this gets announced to the public, certainly behind the scenes, I'm sure MLG has NDA with all the developers they talk to, so they know things way before we know them. So they're well aware. So as soon as Sundance is courting a different game, I feel that that's a tiny signal to the world that, hey, look, Halo may not work out the way we had hoped, right?
Here's my thing, Jerry, and I'm just kind of curious, and we've talked about this before, that what the numbers for COD last year were pretty abysmal. They were pretty bad, but at least stream numbers. At least the crowd wasn't that great, and I think that's a lot to do. That was more MLG's fault than it was the crowds. But what do you think they're going to do different to try to bring those numbers?
They need to make front and center. They need to make sure that they're thinking about the audience, right? I was telling this to somebody the other day. Your game doesn't have a spectator mode and it's not audience friendly. Nobody wants to watch it. We have choices, right? If we have choices, think about this. If we have choices, why would I watch a shitty stream that doesn't have any spectator mode and isn't really good when I can watch League of Legends, for example, or StarCraft, or something where I get a great user interface, I get all the information I need, I have professional casting. So again, even Call of Duty, if they're going to compete, they've got to step up their game. Right? It's always about the quality of the spectator's experience that makes an esport an esport, right? That's the single most important thing. Because if you don't get audiences engaged and entertained, no one's going to watch it. And that's just the truth. Doesn't matter how popular a game is. And Call of Duty proved that, right? Why did Call of Duty perform less when it's such a popular game? Answer, it wasn't fun to watch. Now, if you can adjust the factors that make it, I guess, not engaging to watch, you'll get better. But again, it's not, even if they've got all the right pieces, there has to be a real focus on delivering a very engaging kind of show or event in order to get people to watch.
Yeah, and the other problem too is that this goes back to the same problem, but you have to let the casters hear. You have to let the audience hear the casters in a game like that. Like, it's just you have to. To me, no one's going to watch it in the audience if you don't allow the casters to watch it.
I agree. I mean, and they can now. We've seen what they did for League of Legends, and I'm sure they could replicate that for Call of Duty.
Yeah, I mean, the only question there is that those booths, from what we hear from MLG at least, are technically owned by Riot,
and they cost a lot of money.
And they cost a lot of money.
Again, that doesn't mean the Treyarch won't or Activision won't
I'm not.
themselves.
No,
but here's the other thing, right?
All I'm saying is that'll at least prove that they're willing to put a ton of money into this. That's good. That's what I'm saying.
I think the other thing, too, is that there are other questions slightly. I mean, does the fact that Vivendi's putting Blizzard and Activision up for sale affect Activision's pockets in regards to esports? And does Treyarch as a developer have enough to really support esports? I don't know the answer to those questions, but they're definitely worth asking. At the bottom line, Sundance has said it before, and he'll probably say it again. He can run his entire business on League of Legends and StarCraft, and that's just a fact, right? So whether or not there's a 360 game, I don't think really affects MLG that much, to be honest.
Interesting. Yep. I have a couple questions to ask you guys on your thoughts about the future of console gaming. One actually for Xbox, one for the Sony PlayStation. Some really interesting news that's come out over the last few days, I should say. Before we get to that, I think we should take a quick commercial break. And then we'll be right back to discuss that, hit some final news, and then wrap up because we actually do want to have a little bit of a shorter show tonight. Both Jerry and I are getting ready to travel to California, both for different reasons. So just as another announcement, we will have no show next week. We'll be back for the next episode in 2 weeks. Let's take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back to finish out the 121st round of the Losers Bracket. Stay tuned. All right, and we are back with the Losers Bracket, and I wanted to go into a couple questions about some consoles, some things that I had read on the internet, getting Jerry and Curt's opinion on this. But Curt, I know there was something else you wanted to bring up right beforehand. We'll get into those questions in just a few seconds. Curt, what was it that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, a few things I wanted to talk about, but one of the most important one that come up this week is I want to talk about how the Violet is now a free agent. He's not on Team Empire anymore, and he's not gone from Team Empire for something that we've seen traditionally. Usually when players leave, there's a problem, there's some kind of dispute. There's something that he's joining. He's immediately joining another team. He already has an offer, something like that. That's not what's happening here, from the way we understand it, at least. Violet is one of the only current players that I guess is known to have an agent, and a lot of people don't even know that. But he technically does have an agent, what is considered a traditional agent, I guess, who's his personal manager, who he lives with, which is Andrew Tomlinson from CSN. And they're just basically looking for other offers. So they're basically saying, hey, it's basically an agent fighting for more money for his player, and in turn, more money for him. I just wanted to bring this up because I'm kind of curious. After we spoke to Tumba from EMG the other day, this could be stuff that we see more. And do we see it as a good thing? Do we see it as a bad thing?
Jerry, what do you think about that?
See, I think we come back to this challenge again about profitability and where people are actually going. Again, I'm not a fan of what I consider to be a StarCraft bubble. I'm just not so sure that again, but it's hard to say because we don't know what Violet was paid. We really don't. So maybe he's right to ask for money, maybe he's not. I just don't know. And that's what makes it difficult. But I do think it's interesting that he has his own agent. And I think it's interesting that we may more and more see StarCraft players think that way. If I were some of these esports agencies, those would be my first picks, is to say, wait a minute. And if they're successful, I think this is the truth. I think if one person gets really successful through the agency and they have great non-endemic sponsors, that's going to change the landscape forever. Teams are going to be in deep trouble if they're going to want to hold talent.
Yeah.
Very interesting to think about.
I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that it's just interesting to see. I guess it's interesting to speculate, number one. I mean, like you said, no one 100% knows what his salary was. And so we can't, necessarily talk about, the difference between worth and what you're actually getting, kind of thing, because in the end we don't know. He could be getting $500, he could be $5,000 a month. You never really know. So it's very interesting to see how these agencies are going to work out. But Andrew's been doing it for a while, and a lot of people just don't know and stuff like that. So it's at the very least good to see someone someone fighting for their player and sort of seeing that model at least start to work in the way that it traditionally has in the past. So,
yeah.
Yep.
You talk a lot about speculating there and talk about the future. That actually segues very nicely into the questions that I wanted to ask you about the future of console gaming, as that I feel like a really interesting piece of information came out about both the Xbox and both about the PlayStation right within the last day or so. So let's start out on the Xbox side of things. Microsoft just registered or acquired the rights to a couple of new domains. And these are really interesting. One in particular that catches my eye is they have obtained the name Xbox 8. Some people are speculating that might be the name of the new console to coincide with Windows 8. I've even seen the rumor of, hey, maybe Windows 8 will run on the new Xbox, the next Xbox. Could even be a sideways infinity symbol, so the next Xbox could be called the Xbox Infinity. My question would be, if the next Xbox does run Windows 8, with how much they're looking to do with things like smart glass, and using tablets and cell phones in conjunction with the Xbox, how would that change the game? How will that change competitive gaming if we are able to play, say, a PC game on the Xbox? What will that bring to the table? I mean, Curt, is this something that's feasible? Could we see this in the future? Is that something that we should look forward to? Is PC and Xbox kind of merging a little bit further together?
I honestly, I don't know. I've never really considered it. I don't necessarily know why. I feel like I've always been, I guess, more of a PC supremacist in that aspect. You've seen that image of like, PC God, console.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about. So that being said, but I'm not sure as far as the hardware requirements and things like that necessary. I honestly think that Windows 8 on Xbox would not be surprising. It really wouldn't. for a few reasons. I think Microsoft might see just how much that PlayStation's actually being charged for. I mean, when the PlayStation 3 came out, how much was it originally? $800, $600, something like that. Yeah, and the Xbox was usually hovered around $350, right? Like always.
I think it was even a little higher than that at first, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like they feel like they can get away with a little bit more, considering their what they put in it, kind of thing. That being said, and I also think if you generally look at Windows 8, it kind of looks like something that would fit on the Xbox. It looks like something you would see on your phone. It's it's not very traditional in that aspect. So it's possible, but I don't know enough about it.
With the touch aspects of Windows 8, it actually seems like it would line up really, really easily with something like the Kinect, where you could just hover your hand over. It's the same sort of interface they currently use. It's just what they're going to be using on tablets with touch. Jerry, what do you think about this? I mean, any thoughts that you might want to throw in here about the future of the Xbox and what this might potentially mean?
Well, I mean, if I look at it from the business world, I mean, I see everything moving to the cloud. I mean, that seems to be the future. You look at where do we want most of the processing to happen, and it's in the cloud. So I really feel like it's all going to move there eventually. Do we really need consoles? Do we really need PCs in the future? There's a lot of evidence that those things could change. I mean, right now in some areas we're just limited by sort of like your high-speed internet access. I mean, if all that dark fiber got lit and all of a sudden we just opened the floodgates and people had 100 meg down and 50 meg up, you really wouldn't need much processing power locally. So I think the ideal future is the cloud. I really do. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's cost-effective. And I just think that, whatever Xbox or even Sony or anybody does, you need to look to that future. So do I think that Microsoft is definitely going to do something with Windows 8? They probably should. Will it be this next generation? Maybe not. I mean, they're going to go and make business decisions, so they're going to milk things. But maybe one of their competitors or someone small will come around. We remember On Live, they sort of were around, and they were kind of cloud-based. Not really having the right games, but sort of that idea. So I just think the future is probably going to be the cloud. I do.
Jerry, you set me up perfectly for my next question. It's like you knew what I was going to bring up, because Sony actually just made a really cool purchase, and this is the second thing I wanted to bring up. If you've seen the news, there's a company called Gaikai. It's a Japanese word, loosely translates to open ocean. On their website it says, imagine you're in the middle of the ocean. It's a vast open space with infinite directions to go and explore. We feel that way about our technology. What Gaikai is, it is a new technology that allows you to play games streaming through any web browser. If you want to play the latest new game, you don't have a good computer, but you have your Google Chrome open or your Mozilla Firefox, you can load Gaikai up. It uses Flash, it uses Java, and it just streams the game right to you. You can play a full high-definition game, beautiful, crisp, clear graphics, even on a lower-end computer that you could buy from, say, Best Buy for $299. Incredible technology, and Sony just bought the company for $380 million. This might change the landscape as we know it. And what my question is could PlayStation become the console that we really associate with gaming if you have to, let's say, not even own a PlayStation to be able to use this, you could just open up your browser and play a game. Could this be what we see all gaming go towards in the future? Curt, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this new huge decision from Sony to purchase Gaikai.
I think it's interesting. I just don't know. I don't know how it's going to work. I am not smart enough to comment. Plain and simple. I am not smart enough to comment when it comes to that stuff. I mean, me personally, I just know how fickle games are and how fickle some of the the most expensively produced games are, like the Black Ops for PCs and stuff, and the Call of Duty series, any of the Call of Duty series for PC and stuff like that, and Battlefield, and they're very, very fickle. All games are very fickle. So for them to work like that, I just don't understand how it's feasible yet. But if anybody can do it, it would be them, I would suppose.
Yeah. The thing that's so interesting is requires nothing on your hardware. Their hardware is the thing that's processing and doing all the information, all the hard work, and it just sends it to you. The only limitation will be your internet speed. You'll have to have a fast enough internet connection to be able to stream the game. Similar to what Jerry was talking about with OnLive in the past.
But what kind of internet connection would that require? I mean, you look at OnLive in the past, and it wasn't just about the shitty games. It was about the fact that it played shitty too. Like, you know, I mean, even with amazing internet speed, it was very hard to stream that much data. I don't, especially in the latency in which we're accustomed to. You know, I mean, you know,
that would be latency, sir. Just want to point that out.
Get out.
In North Carolina, they may say radiator, but to the rest of the world, it's radiator. So, you know, latency, it's latency.
You eat fucking hot dogs with pickles on them, okay? Get out.
I do not. I am not. I wouldn't even eat hot dogs. That's not even food. What the hell is a hot dog?
No. Okay, so here's the big thing. You would only need about a 5 megabyte download to be able to stream content effectively.
See, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. There's no way that's true. Because I can barely watch a high-quality YouTube video with my 5 meg down. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it.
You might say that right now, but I can't help but think this is going to be huge. Current content partners, if you look on the Gaikai website, just to give you a few, right off the bat, you see 2K, EA, Ubisoft, WB, Capcom, Sega. Here's a big one, Riot.
To be fair, we don't know what. So don't just think of it in terms of streaming games. There might be other support services that they could be streaming currently as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, see, that makes sense. And also, as another thing, it would all depend on the game as well. A game like League of Legends, it's highly possible it could fit the model better. But a FPS game, a Call of Duty type game, I just see it being incredibly hard. That's all I'm saying. And I guess I'm not smart enough to understand how it would even be possible. But
I think the
definitely interesting.
Yeah, the technological advances that this just brings to mind, though, if you want to be able to play your favorite game and you're not near your computer or even your console, but you have your smartphone with you and that has a browser on it so you can open it up and play your games right from your phone using like a controller, the idea for the future of gaming is just absolutely incredible. Imagine a Bluetooth controller to your cell phone so that you can practice your competitive game of choice while you're sitting in the doctor's office waiting to be called.
Now, Jason, you've hit us with this lightning round here, and now I have a question I want to hit everyone with that we didn't talk about, but I want to bring it up really quickly, and very simply I want to talk, and we haven't talked about it yet, is Machinima Versus. We haven't mentioned Machinima Versus yet. For those that aren't aware, Machinima is a huge company. Recently Google invested into them, and what amazes me, I'm not sure if you read that article, Jerry. I sure assume you did, but it was basically Google invests all this money. They said, Google, why did you invest all this money in Machinima? And they said, we want to make money.
Yeah.
That's basically.
Well, and that's true, right? I mean, Machinima definitely. This whole thing, right? And this is where I think really we're going to see bigger and bigger players are going to play in this space, right? There are a lot of smart people who are going to want to make money in a really smart way, and this is good for MLG. It's good for the developers that are involved in it, and I suspect that Machinima is right on key. Machinima's responsibility, if you really think about it, to its investors is obviously to make money, and their domain, so to speak, is online gaming video content. And the esports has a lot of online gaming video content. And expanding to Versus seems like a very natural fit and something Machinima absolutely belongs to be at. So, to me, it's a no-brainer for Google and it's a no-brainer for Machinima.
Yeah, for those that aren't unaware, Machinima Versus, once again, is the esports channel for Machinima, which to me is huge. Now, they've talked about this before. They've talked about, IPL doing one and stuff like that. But this is the first time we've really ever seen it from a really, really big company like this. And it's, as far as I'm aware at least, and it's really amazing. You look at some of the content they've got on out there already. It's just amazing. I hope to see more. And also another thing that we don't realize is something like this would allow teams to make so much more money off of their media. This is something that people I don't think are quite realizing yet. They're not quite wrapping their head around yet. Machinima Versus basically owns their CPM in which they put out. They can set in what they're paying you for your content. So if they want to support a team like EG or Quantic or us or vVv or whoever for a high CPM, because of the fact that they want to support that content and get that content on their site, they can do that. And that creates a new source of money for esports organizations, plain and simple, that was not there before, and a higher source of money. More than just streaming, more than just putting your shit via just regular YouTube. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Curt, I'm really happy that you brought this up, because I'll announce right now that on our next episode of the Losers Bracket, in 2 weeks, we will actually have the manager of Machinima Versus as our guest here on the show. So really great timing in bringing up that question, because our next guest for the 122nd round will be Zach Mazzotta, also known as Mioff, used to be a former content producer for MLG, now the manager of Machinima Versus. So we'll get to hear right from him about their plans, what the future of Versus holds in store, and what we can look to expect. So I look forward to hearing that, and kudos for bringing that up, because that was pretty good timing. So yet again, 2 weeks from now, we'll get to hear right from the company what they're going to be doing. So thanks, Curt.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, also, I want to bring up some news that's happened for those who follow the international esports scene. It appears, and I think this is pretty true, that the leader of esports team Moscow 5, which most of you are probably familiar with from League of Legends, Dota, and I do believe Counter-Strike, has been arrested for creating phishing sites and basically stealing information from credit cards for people. I am not, I've been doing some quick searching. It looks like it's pretty real. Slasher just tweeted about it also, and I kind of concur that it looks to be fairly legit. Interestingly enough, I tonight had a conversation about Riot Games expansion into Russia. And for those who don't know, Riot Games has a very humble culture. And obviously Russian culture is not necessarily known for humble. And when I had commented that I imagine it was challenging to hire someone in Russia, they had immediately also commented not only humility, but a big concern is being scrupulous. And I think that's probably in reaction to this news about what happened to Moscow 5. So based on those two sort of things, it is a good chance that it's true. And again, I mean, I think we're going to see some of this come out more and more, and we've seen this come out more in the past. This is why I always follow the money. If teams are spending money on sponsoring players and they don't necessarily have the sponsor base, you have to start asking the question, where's the money coming from? And I always like to follow the money trail. And here it did seem a little bit odd that they were sort of globetrotting, considering their sponsor base and what I knew. But now this sort of fills in the blanks as to where some of that money was coming from.
Huh. Really interesting news coming out tonight. I actually had not heard anything about that. But hopefully, fingers crossed, that all gets worked out. Moscow 5 does have a lot of talent as a team. I look forward to seeing where they go from here. Hopefully they'll be able to overcome what challenges they have in store for them. Now, since this is the week of July the 4th, I think it's actually about time that we wrap the show up. A little bit of a quicker show, but we have the holiday tomorrow, so I want to be very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Thoughtful to everyone's time with the holiday. One reminder, yet again, we will not have a show next week. Both Jerry and I have some travels that we have in store for us. So we will be back in 2 weeks with Zach from Machinima Versus, who we'll be talking to. So I look forward to that. With that being said, I do want to thank our sponsors, Control Freak, SteelSeries, Gamer Grub, the band Power Glove for supplying the music that we use each and every week on our show. Shout out again to Adam Keits Hart, our guest, the shoryuken.com editor-in-chief. Thank you to all of you that tuned in a little bit early. I know we started a little bit early tonight to accommodate our guest who was working, had to take a break just to be able to be on the show. Thank you for tuning in, guys. If you do have any feedback for us, all our Twitter handles right down here at the bottom of our frames, at vvvparadise, at Lord Jareth, at ENEKeyhunt. Give us your feedback. If you want to contact me directly, email me at paradise at vvvgaming.com. Would love to hear your thoughts on the show, ways that we can improve, etc., etc. Final shout-outs for the evening. Curt, the floor is yours.
Yeah, a few shout-outs. Number one, the Home Story Cup 5 will be this weekend. The groups were recently announced for that. A lot of really amazing players. What I find interesting, and I'm gotta give them shit for this, is the fact that they invited a certain amount of players, and one of the invites was Destiny, where the other, which I don't quite get. But anyway, I had to just bring that up. But the groups are at least interesting. And Sleep, one of our players, will be there. He's in the group with Mana, Cass, who is an amazing European Terran player, and Mana, of course, fresh off his tear through, and Destiny is also in his group as well. So definitely look out for that. Watch that. Home Cup is always incredibly entertaining. They have In Control there. He always is incredibly hilarious. So definitely check that out. My final shout out will really be to Red Eye. And for those that are new to this space, might not know who Red Eye is, but Red Eye's been around forever. That's all I can really say. And he hosted the WCS UK event. And people just loved him, and they had no fucking idea who he was. Reddit blew up because they had no idea who this guy was, and they wanted him in everything now, which I just find amazing, because that just shows to me that he can come in, into the space during any game, anywhere, and really do an amazing job. So shout out to him. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Challoner. I don't know how to say his last name, but CHALONER anyway. You can follow him on Twitter there. Really, really amazing guy. So that's it.
Cool. Jerry, floor is yours.
I got so many shout-outs this week since we're not going to be on next week. I want to give a big shout-out to Riot Games, who's going to host me this week. I really appreciate that. I look forward to seeing how Riot Games operates. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing experience. I also give a shout-out to Hi-Rez for their game Smite. If you can get a beta code for Smite, I think they're doing really smart things. I also want to give a shout-out to ArenaNet. I really appreciate them selecting vVvGaming to be one of the PvP World v World testing organizations. We're honored that ArenaNet sees us that way, and we want to give a big shout-out to ArenaNet for that. So, for us in VVV, League of Legends, Guild Wars 2, those are our number 1 and 2 priorities. I think I've said that a lot. I see a lot of future in that for us. It's good for our community, good for what we do. So those are going to be front and center for a large part of our community-focused stuff. We're going to be announcing our StarCraft Academy, and Academy is really the wrong word for it. It's really going to be a training consortium. We're going to call it Aspire. It's going to have its own brand. I think it'll be exciting, and we'll release some of that information on July 4th. My final tip for you all is a really fun little movie called God Bless America. If you are like me and you'd love to shoot stupid people, it's a movie about shooting stupid people. Have fun with it. Happy 4th of July to everyone, and be safe.
Definitely. Ditto to everything that Jerry just said. Have a great holiday this week. We will see you back here in 2 weeks when we return on the Losers Bracket. If you happen to be in Southern California and are heading to Comic-Con, I might see you there next week. And in the meantime, if you are playing League of Legends, add me, vVvParadise. Would love to play some games with you. Take care, everybody. We'll see you back here very soon, 2 weeks, for the 122nd episode of the Losers Bracket. Have fun gaming in the meantime. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.